So for those that are just coming into the room, welcome to figuring out what kind of buyer you are by taking our quiz to figure out what type of archetype you are. So feel free to scan the QR code. It is a short 14-question multiple choice quiz that should be pretty easy to go through. And yeah, we're just going to figure out what type of buyers y'all are. There is an optional contact form at the end if you decide that you want to reserve some time on my calendar. I offer, I'll go into a little bit more about what I do a little later, but I'm a retail consultant. And so if you're interested in some help in your business, I am an objective party where I can maybe talk to y'all a little bit more about that. Who needs a few more minutes? A couple? Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. So if for some reason you need to leave early today or you want a copy of today's slides, feel free to send an email to me, Carrie at outsidelooks.com. And my out of office email is set with the link to the slides. And then I'm actually giving 4 presentations tomorrow at the local trade show at Austin Traffic. And those slides are linked in there as well. So if you email me, it'll be 5 sets of slides because I have a total of 5 presentations that I'm doing. So Carrie, C-A-R-R-I-E at outsidelooks.com. Okay. So I offered 3 different types of buyers in this process of doing a little personality quiz about ourselves. The first one is a shopaholic. Who was a shopaholic? Anybody? A couple of people. Y'all are the most stylish, likely, of the group. Who was a hoarder? Did anyone test as a hoarder? A couple of people. And then who was the cautious connoisseur? I bet a lot of y'all were. Yeah, okay, cool. I also call this person a penny pincher because they can have tendencies to be very cautious or penny pinching with their dollars that they use in their business. Okay, and we'll go a little bit more into each one. Okay, so hi, my name is Carrie Watson. This is the first time I've ever spoke at the running event, so I'm so glad to be here. Austin, Texas is my home, so I grew up in Texas, was born in Texas. So I hope that you enjoy Austin while you're here. There's lots of good restaurants, lots of margaritas to be had, lots of tacos to be had. So I really hope that you enjoy your stay here while you're here. Today is beautiful, sunny, 60 degrees, and it doesn't get much better than that. And so a little bit more about me. So I normally am in the specialty outdoor space. So the specialty outdoor retailers that sell a lot of the same sneaker brands that y'all do, running shoe brands, maybe even trail running shoe brands. But then we add in a lot of apparel and a lot of hard goods. So that's my typical client is within the outdoor space. And so I was in Kansas City for a grassroots retailer a few weeks ago, and then I even was in Salt Lake City for outdoor retailer and had presentations at all of those locations. So I'm pumped to be local and not have to get on an airplane to come and see you guys. And yeah, so a little bit more about exactly what I do. I'm the founder and owner of a retail consultancy that's called Outside Looks. And so my background is I actually got my start in corporate retail when I worked at Fossil Retail in Dallas. And so many of you are buyers. When I worked at Fossil, I worked on one side of buying that was called planning and allocation. So I'm the number dork person that puts the numbers behind the orders that y'all are writing. The part that I did not do at Fossil was what we call merchandising or being a merchant. And so that's where you actually get to pick the merchandise. That's when you get to decide on what the store really looks like. So that was the part that I kind of missed in being a buyer. But anyway, so that's where I got my start. I worked at the corporate office for Fossil for a long time. And for those of you that know different Texas cities and their personalities, Dallas is where Fossil is located, and Dallas just wasn't home for me. I needed to get back down to Central Texas to Austin. And so in doing so, I worked for a 10-store chain called Backwoods back in the day, and I eventually led that 10-store outdoor retailer that did about $20 million in sales, and I was their merchandiser, their manager of merchandise, and I had a team of 7 buyers, and we forecasted sales. We had inventory plans for each store, so we were juggling a lot of money all at once. But when push came to shove, I really wanted to get into consulting and really help specialty retailers with my knowledge of corporate background, of corporate retailing and planning and sales forecasting, and bring it to the specialty level where I could help people like y'all and people that maybe started doing retailing as a second phase or maybe even a third phase of your life in how you wanted to do your lifestyle. So that's Outside Looks. So we have, I have 2 other people that help me. They're at the other trade show right now. But Ryan and Claren are my teammates. They help me do amazing things with work. And then as a team, we plan about $100 million worth of specialty retail sales across all kinds of categories that go from resort helmets and goggles all the way to trout flies for fly fishing people. And then we do have a handful of specialty run stores too. So yeah, one thing that is really exciting that we're doing at Outside Looks this year, and this is the 4th year that we've done it, but every single year we interview retailers that apply for our retail business makeover. And so what we do during this, what we call a business makeover, is we donate consulting services to one retailer every single year. So this will be the 4th year that we're doing it. We've had a more outdoor lifestyle shop in Michigan. We've had a retailer in Baltimore. This year we're doing a retailer in Lubbock. But anyway, long story short, you start to understand what it's like to work with someone like us. You get sales forecasts, you get inventory plans by category. You start to understand what business negotiations will look like. It's a great spot for if someone's brand new in retail and you have no background. But yeah, so we donate consulting services. You're welcome to navigate to outsidelooks.com. You'll see a pink banner, and that application takes like 10 minutes in order to do. So it's super duper easy, and if you're interested, feel free to take a photo. I also have some flyers by the door on your way out. So yeah, I hope that you apply, and we really are looking for somebody that's coachable, eager, really ready to rock and roll with their business and kind of figure out what the next level of their business looks like. Okay, so we already did how did you score. I want to go back and talk about these different archetypes, right? So shopaholics have a tendency to be really eager, very excited personalities. You guys have you have the opportunity, like, I'm gonna sound really biased with all of these things, so already please just forgive me for sounding like I have a big bias about all these people. But yeah, so shopaholics are very eager, they're excited. You guys have a tendency to want to cycle through products very quickly, okay? So the shopaholic, this person's store is always different, constantly looking different, constantly changing. Your visual merchandising is morphing every time that the customer, your shopper, comes in. This person also has a tendency to get kind of bored with a certain colorway, or if something just doesn't make sense for the entire store, you're pretty quick. Maybe you have like a quick trigger in order to make changes in your assortment. So shopaholics also have a tendency to put merchandise on sale pretty regularly. So they also have a tendency to have lower margins. But because you have lower margins, you're constantly churning through merchandise, you have faster turns. So faster turns mean, who's familiar with inventory turn or uses it in their business? Okay, a lot of you do. So inventory turn is a relationship between how much inventory you keep in the store versus how much you're selling. So let's say that you keep, I don't know, a dozen eggs on hand at all times. If you sell all 12 eggs, then that's one turn. If you only sell one egg a month over the course of 12 months, then that's a really slow turn because you have so much invested in inventory versus the amount that you're selling. So some people look at inventory turn almost like it's a return on the investment that you have with money stuck in inventory. A high turn means that you're constantly churning through this. So our shopaholics that get bored, that have maybe lower margins, but they're selling through things really fast. So that means that they don't have as much invested in their average inventory. Now, the opposite of that is the hoarder, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those characteristics are like. So with shopaholics, like I said, they have a tendency to be really good at marketing too, because they're constantly excited and eager. And so those are the top level things about shopaholics. Any questions so far or anything to add? Would love to hear from you. Yes?
Do people, is it like a continuum? Do people change throughout their career?
So are these archetypes on a continuum, and can people morph from one to the next to the next? I would say yes. So it can be a personality change for sure, but we can also be almost like a victim to our environment. So COVID, for example, we almost could not be a hoarder during COVID because the sell-through was so high, the demand was so high from our shoppers. And so we almost had to be a shopaholic during COVID because we had to be creative with the merchandise we were bringing into the store. We had to find new brands when our trusty brands were out of all the merchandise that they had during that time. So yes, I do think that there's personality types especially when there's something inside of you that obviously wants to change when you're a product of your environment. And then also, if you are looking to make a big change in your business, meaning like, do you need cash out of your business? Do you have a lot of bills that you need to pay? Then you might go on sale and create sales so you can pay and have cash to pay those big bills. Is it after Christmas or after your peak selling season and you have a lot of cash in hand? Then you might be a little bit more like a hoarder because you feel like you can invest in your business a little bit more. Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. All right, so hoarders are almost on the exact opposite side of the spectrum of our shopaholics. So hoarders, I see this a lot in outdoor industry, y'all. People in outdoor, when I start helping them, we're talking like turns of 1.8. Like, it's terrible. It's so slow to have a turn of under 2. That means that you're keeping so much inventory on hand in order to make those sales happen. Anyway, so hoarders, you almost have a museum for your store. You are paying brands to showcase their products in your store for them, and you want to be prepared for every single sale, every single customer type that walks in your store. You want to be able to fit them. You want to be able to have them trust you as a customer, and their customer loyalty is really, really, really important to you. So hoarders just have a tendency to have a flat size run of all shoes across the entire board. So if you're a product hoarder, you are likely putting lots of size, women's 5.5 and men's size 13s on sale because you're buying for every single selling situation in the entire world. Whereas if I go back to shopaholics, right, they might sell out of everything and they feel like they're leaving sales on the table because they can't. They just don't quite like morph into, they don't morph their company image to fit every customer. Shopaholics are looking to attract that customer to them. Whereas hoarders, they want to be prepared for every single person that comes into the store. And that can be really expensive because it's almost like you're a hardware store, almost like you're a Home Depot or a Lowe's, because you want and you need to have every bolt, every Allen wrench size that ever existed in the entire world in both metric and imperial. And that gets expensive when you're having to do all of that. And with hoarders, you have a tendency to love high margin. Hoarders don't put things on sale at all. They really want margin. MAP policies scare you. You don't want to be in trouble. Hoarders have a tendency to be rule followers a lot of times. And hoarders have a tendency to have a high inventory in terms of the sales that return out of your stock levels. So you have a lot of cash invested in your inventory. Now, if you have deep pockets, if you have a secondary business helping you pay the bills, sometimes hoarding is okay. And it's more of a, what would I say, like an elective thing that you decide to do in your business by hoarding. Now, if you're a hoarder and you're feeling a cash crunch, guess where it's all hiding? Yes, it's all hiding in your stock. So one thing about hoarding that I want to highlight is when you have let's say a 2-turn, right? You're selling through your inventory twice a year. So on average, if you're selling through your inventory twice a year, how old is something when you sell it?
6 months.
6 months. How long ago did you pay the bill on that product?
5 months.
Yeah, in a long season, best case scenario, if you bought it in October and they gave you terms through January, February, great. But what about ASAPs? What kind of terms do you get on ASAPs or at once, right? Short. If you have a 4-turn, we start to get in a little bit more alignment with our cash and how our bills start to unfold, right? So in outdoor, it's pretty normal that on pre-season terms, at least, you get 90 days of dating. That's okay. We'll take it. But it's more important to get to that 4-turn because you're cashing out on your inventory. It's on average, it's 3 months old before it sells, and you're able to pay your invoice. And so the cash flow has a tendency to be a little bit more balanced in a way. Now, some women's fashion boutiques, sunglass stores, even Home Depot. Can you believe that some of these retailers get 7 to 12 turns in their business? That's so fast. When I worked at Fossil, I sat next to the gal, and guys, this was like 10 years ago, but I sat next to the gal that allocated merchandise to Manhattan and all the tiny, tiny little stores in Manhattan. And I remember asking her about what her Black Friday strategy was going to be. And 10 years ago, Black Friday in brick and mortar stores was a big deal. And so her name is Tori. I said, Tori, what are you going to do? Like, how do you schedule the deliveries at your store? And she said, well, the store is so tiny that I have to schedule a delivery on Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. And I asked her, well, why so often? Well, the store doesn't have any backroom space. So because of how small the store was, how fast sales were happening in regards to her inventory ratio, she would turn the store 5 times in a weekend. Like that is so, it's just crazy that it's able to happen like that. But when you have a tiny store and you feel like you're busting at the seams, then operationally speaking, you can fine-tune your deliveries. Now, with hoarders, a lot of times I get people that are interested in expanding the store. right? We've got a lot of people are 1.5 turns. You've got a lot of inventory in relation to sales. And so when I hear that and I see that the inventory turn is low, I'm like, hold on, wait. Do not spend $150,000 on a store renovation when you profit $20,000 a year after all of your expenses are done, because that's going to take a long time for it to pay off, right? What happens if we just reduce the amount that you keep on average and actually make money by selling the merchandise instead of feeling like we need to expand and have higher taxes on our inventory? I mean, you guys, I think, see where I'm going with this. So it can be really expensive to be a hoarder. It can make you feel good because you're prepared for every type of sale you're ever going to have, but it can be really expensive. So for my hoarders, I suggest a tip that I have for you is just figure out what your pillar is, who you want to be in terms of marketing and who your target customer is, and just try to be really, keep your assortment in alignment with that DNA that you've created for yourselves. Okay, and then we've got our cautious connoisseurs / our penny pinchers. So my cautious connoisseurs, y'all are balanced in a lot of ways, and quite frankly, you're kind of boring because you're doing a lot of stuff right. But what I'm gonna really focus on is your penny pinching tendencies. So when we penny pinch, it's almost like we're too scared to spend money. We're too nervous to spend money because either we have too tight of cash flow, or we've made some big expensive mistakes in the past that make us really nervous. But penny pinchers have a tendency to, as you can imagine, be really tight-lipped, really tight-walleted, and it can ultimately hurt your business in a lot of ways. When I help brand new clients that are not properly funded, that are nervous to invest in an inventory software tracking program, that are nervous to invest in a traffic counter or any kind of marketing or any kind of outside help, when they are not paying to have help inside their store. I don't know how many owner-operators I've seen be the only person in their business for 6 months. And I don't know how they do it, y'all. They're running themselves ragged. So for my penny pinchers, a little bit of help is good. A little bit of risk is good. It's a little bit more interesting. So I feel like I saw somebody shaking their head. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. All right. So we already did how we score. Most of y'all do show a lot of healthy tendencies. You're doing your research. You're looking at your point of sale reports. You're trying to understand where the trends are taking you. You're working with your brands. You're negotiating with them to have a complete assortment that makes sense for everybody associated. So does anybody have any real-world examples that you are interested in sharing that we could all learn from? Got a shy group today. Okay. I already shared my real-world examples with you. Okay, so I want to go over some other tendencies that each group has in terms of oversights. So I'm going to kind of talk about how shopaholics work, how hoarders work, and how our connoisseurs and our penny pinchers work. So in terms of oversights, our shopaholic has a tendency to leave money on the table because they don't have enough merchandise in the store. They have a tendency to maybe discount a little bit too much, and there is kind of this Goldilocks impact of what is the balance between a shopaholic versus a hoarder. And with a hoarder, we have a tendency to allow dust to settle on inventory maybe a little too easily. We allow it to age. We allow it to become a museum piece in our store. And then with penny pinchers, I think an oversight with penny pinchers is we're really nervous, we're really guarded, and we might not be properly funded. And if that's something that you feel is happening in your store, I know that interest is really expensive right now, but ultimately I think you have to choose, like, what does my store look like with a little bit more funding? And what could this do in terms of motivation for my staff, in terms of being a rocket ship that grows? Like, what happens if I can invest in a website? What happens if I can invest in a little bit more community involvement or marketing to get a little bit more well-known? So those are some of the common oversights that I see with each one. With risks, I think the biggest risk out of all of them is likely the tendency to hoard and to sit on inventory without taking action. Because, like I said, when something is a two-turn and we're selling it on average once every 6 months, that thing is really old. It's 260 days old, and we paid that bill 3 months ago. And so it's just from my experience, it's a really tricky spot to be in when we are allowing our invoices to not have a return on investment until after we're paying them. So that's a big risk, in my opinion. Talents, I think this is a really positive one, right? And I started out with some of them a little bit earlier. So with hoarders, you have fabulous customer service. You care about every single person coming into the store. You are a people person. You are prepared. Thank you for likely being a Boy or Girl Scout when you were younger. And I just, with hoarders, there are so many good things about being a hoarder as well. With our penny pinchers, I think your talent is being very, scrutinizing every demand that your store is taking on you. You want validity that you're going to see an investment on whatever you're spending, and that's fine. You need proof there. And of course, the talent with our shopaholics is they just have a tendency to have a really good eye for the assortment. They know their customers really well. When y'all are picking out goods, you know exactly who's going to buy it, and you know how to speak and market that item to your new customers that are coming in. And the opportunities for each one individually are maybe morphing into what we talked about on the continuum, maybe morphing and trying to find some individualistic opportunities and strengths from the other types of buying archetypes. Maybe you aren't the eager, excited person that a shopaholic is, but I bet somebody on your team is. I bet somebody on your staff is a product person that gets excited about everything, and there's a reason that you don't let them buy because they would probably buy everything, right? So if you're feeling like there's an opportunity to invest in something that is a little bit out of your wheelhouse or you're not very comfortable with, try and find that person or develop a relationship with somebody that can help you kind of figure that out. So I think those are some fun opportunities in order to bring a little bit more life into the store. Okay, so that's my presentation today, y'all. Nice, short, and sweet. So if you are interested in reserving a time on my calendar, this will take you to a booking website where you can reserve some time on my calendar for free. And then if you want a QR code straight to the makeover giveaway, I've got that listed there. But I want to make sure that I ask questions and there's a welcome discussion here. I left plenty of time open right now so we could talk about whatever is on your mind. Yes?
So for turns, is 4 kind of the goal we want to be at? If we're at low 3s, is it?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, what is a good turn rate for me? If I'm at a low 3, should I be trying to head for a 4? And 3 is pretty good. It's not easy to get to a 3 as a store, there's so many sizes that y'all have to support inside of your assortments. And inherently, to sell one product, you have to have a wide depth of product in order to sell one size of a piece of footwear. So getting to a forward turn is always ideal. I know of footwear stores that are up over 6, but it takes incredible scrutinizing, planning, and it almost takes purchase orders from some of your best-selling brands every month or every 2 weeks in terms of deliveries to get there. So it can be daunting to manage something like that if you're not prepared for it. But yes, I would say if you're looking to get to the forward turn, you can always increase sales. So sales are a bigger part of your ratio. Or you can buy a little bit less for a season or two and try and get your average inventory just a smidgen smaller. How do you decrease your inventory in a meaningful way? My 2 cents is get rid of the oldest merchandise first. So in the footwear world, I know that Rick's is a big popular point of sale system, Lightspeed, Heartland, there's lots of great point of sale systems. Because of what I know, or because of what I do, I know a little bit about all of them to be dangerous in a sense. But there's great reports in Rick's that help you understand, I only have 1 left in this size run, or I only have 3 left in this size run, and it's 6 months old. To me, that is a perfect clearance item. If you don't have plans to buy it again in the future, then let's get out of it. Let's pay that invoice by selling it right now. There's also aging reports in pretty much every point of sale system. But I would recommend what's older, figuring out what's older than maybe 9 months as a starting point. Do a sprint on merchandise that's older than 9 months. Then let's do a sprint on merchandise that's older than 8 months, 6 months. And that's a way that you can get your inventory a little bit slimmer so that you can get those faster turns. Mm-hmm. Yes?
I don't know if this is related, but I have this discussion with my general manager all the time. And people raise their hands and who organizes their back stock by a brand, style versus size?
Yep. So the question is who...
Which archetype does that relate to?
That's a great point, yeah. So the question is who organizes their back stock by size? Yeah, maybe 20% of the room. And who organizes by brand or whatever? Yeah, that's the rest of the room. So what do you think? Who organizes by size, do you think? The archetype.
Well, that's the hoarders.
You think? Maybe, yeah.
I think it's, for us, it's, well, I have 2 stores. And one is by size, and it's so she can take every shoe out to that one customer and satisfy their needs.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that they're not what we want, but it's what we have available. So it's
Yeah.
almost like shopaholic in a sense, because she just wants to get it out there.
Yeah.
But it's also a little bit of hoarder, so it's like
Mm-hmm. Comment?
Yes, I mean, we do it kind of relative to the product, right? So all of our running shoes are by brands and size.
Mm-hmm.
All of our men's and women's, like, everyday and fashion stuff are by size, but then by brand within any given size. And then closed toe, open toe are separate, as well as for women's boots, those are their own thing for the fall season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and house shoes as well. So, I mean, it's just kind of, it's dependent on what it is that we're actually talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, all the way in the back.
I think we definitely do something similar where we organize the style and then within the style by size, but we also try to keep shoes that are similar together. So all of our stability shoes all live in the same place. They're all organized by like style and by size within style. But that just makes it easier when you're like looking at your stock room in a big picture to be like, okay, if I know somebody needs a stability shoe and all the stability shoes are right here, like, what are we sitting on a ton of? What did I have last week that's no longer here, that's clearly selling well? So it kind of like allows you to organize like by big picture and then make it smaller.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I love that. Yes.
Just another buying question. Like, relies really heavily on futures versus like fill-ins, and I guess my leading to this is like for smaller stores, those of us that don't have a warehouse or we don't have 12 stores that we're shuffling product through, like we're a small shop. Historically, we order every Sunday. Our turns were way better. COVID hit, we had to stockpile product, and like our turns have tanked. Cash flow was like really tight. We have too much product. So I'm just wondering like where people have settled now, and if you have
I think
comments
it
on
depends on the vendor, like how it makes you now reorder, like fill-ins are like Clifton's who ran out of Clifton's this year. It's now, post-pandemic, the world has changed. So I think it just depends on the vendor and their availability. I think that's the art now, not the science. Like,
Yeah. Yep. Another comment?
Yeah, so not only that, but I think it also depends on the quantity of something that you sell, right? Because really to be able to accurately project out over any amount of time, you have to sell a lot of it, right? So if it's something that you're only doing, I don't know, a vendor that you're doing 20 grand a year in, yeah, you might want to keep them, but that makes it much more difficult to plan out over any period of time when that product is going to be in demand. Plus there's some things like socks. I can order those every week and they always have them. So, I mean, some of them might future out, sure, but there's not really as much of a need to. Same thing with orthotics.
And with apparel, if you don't futures, at least a lot of the vendors, you go to purchase something and there's nothing available.
Yeah, that's how it is in outdoor too. Yeah. Yep.
I think there are times where you should be a hoarder and there are times where you should be a shopaholic. The times to be a hoarder are buy product that sells itself. Hoka's, On Clouds, because of the rocker sold. Like I work at Nordstrom, Tory Burch, Sam Edelman. You could be a hoarder there because you know they're going to sell themselves. But products that are lower end, the synthetics like Steve Madden, where they use synthetic uppers, where somebody who with a lot of experience has to really market that product to get it out the door because the product is very inferior. Or you could go the other extreme, the designer, Gucci, Ron White to a degree. You don't want to be a hoarder with those because you really need people who could really push low-end product and very high-end product out the door. So that's where you be a shopaholic. So you really have to, the ones that sell themselves, be a hoarder. The ones that you have to have experienced salespeople to push it out the door, whether it's inferior product line or superior like Gucci or Ron White or Paul Green. That's when you want to be a shopaholic. Only buy what's really selling.
Yep.
The working versus footwear, we closed into a lot of our vendors early to find out what they're forecasting. And I'm from Canada, we're having the same problems with Hoka, and they're forecasting only 5 to 25% of bookings. That needs to be reflected in my bookings. If you don't know what they're forecasting ahead of time, I'd love to be at a 50-50 at once, but it's never going to get back to that.
And when you say 50-50 at once, do you mean you're pre-seasoning about half of your budget and then you're filling in the other half? Okay. And I saw another hand. Yes?
I think one of the things that's helped with us has been a lot of communication with our reps and getting as far ahead of things as we can on stock swaps. And an example that I could use last year, we're an On dealer, and On launched a bunch of new SKUs as they have been doing for a while. And so we had one that we brought in, I think in quarter 2. It wasn't doing well after a couple months, and I pulled the plug immediately. We had another one that was outperforming it, and we got the rep to do a pair-for-pair stock swap on that. It kind of resets the clock on that inventory. So, if we're keeping our finger on the pulse of what's going on in store, a lot of times that's helped us to just kind of keep things moving and then put those dollars into stock that's moving, which I think was kind of the Nordstrom shopaholic point, right?
Exactly.
But let's just double down on that because we know it's going to move. But not every vendor is willing to do that. But when it's a good partnership, it's great.
Just if I could just interject, I know you run your business great, but the On Clouds, it also depends on the style. The ones with the most support, like the Cloud Swifts and the Cloud Monsters, those sell themselves. You could be a hoarder, but like the Cloud X with little to no support, that's when you got to be more of a shopaholic. So it's not only brands. and I'm going to interject, I'm just going to do an addendum to what I said before. It's within the brand, what's selling itself, where do you, and what do you need experienced salespeople to push the product out the door. So it's also on cloud, it depends, because they very much vary.
Completely agree.
I love all the discussion. So random fact, I saw another hand over here. A random fact, does anyone know what your weekly sell-through is in order to get a 4-time turn? Another way to ask this is, do you know what your weekly sell-through is to have 100% sell-through at 90 days? At 12 weeks? It's 7.3, I think. So 3 months weekly or 100 divided by 12 weeks, right? So you need to be selling approximately 7% of your inventory every week in order to get to that 4 turn. So just a very random little tidbit. Okay, question, comment over here. Did I see one? No? Something else?
This is just my opinion. Like, I'm not telling you how to run your business. I wouldn't go 100% to what sales reps say, because they're going to tell you what's going to give them the highest commission. I would just go by market research. I would just go by from you personally selling to consumers. I wouldn't go too much what sales reps say, because they're just going to say the stuff with the highest commission. It's all going to be the highest end brands, whether it's selling a lot or a little. But again, that's just my opinion. I wouldn't rely too much on the sales reps.
So I think an interesting question was the preseason versus ASAP question, right? And it is so darn hard to know what you're going to need later in season, especially as a small store. And so I loved the questions and the comments about working with your brand to understand, okay, how much are you buying and reserving for ASAPs later? Like, how much are you going to have available to sell in season when I need to do my fill-ins? And sometimes when we get pushed into that heavy preseason, y'all, who's had an unrevised order show up unexpectedly that you forgot about? Woo, that is an expensive $12,000 mistake, right? Yeah. So all of your lives are like crazy busy. If you don't have a purchase order log, I highly suggest getting a purchase order log. As you're submitting submitting preseasons on all the lovely B2B sites, have one central location that has every purchase order number that you submit until you can get it into your point of sale, right? So you don't accidentally forget about it. Who imports into their point of sale, like SKUs and items and purchase orders? Who manually types in everything? Oh, heaven, Lordy. Oh, it's a lot of work, right? Preseason orders are hard. ASAP orders are hard. Data inventory management is hard. Just a very random, we used to hire assistant buyers, and we found out that we were attracting the wrong applicant when we asked for assistant buyers, because we had young gals, young guys excited to go shopping, right? They were so excited. What I ended up changing that job title to, inventory database manager, because that's what I needed out of that person. I needed somebody that knew how to be a wizard in Excel. I needed somebody that knew the keyboard shortcuts. I needed somebody that was talented at managing a database and those data tables, because sometimes as buyers, sometimes we're good at it, and that's what attracts us to buying, the data part. And sometimes, especially if you're good at assortments and good at colors and good at shopping for other people, you have a more artsy mind, and you maybe not be so good at the data management. Any other questions, comments? Excited to see all the new stuff? Yeah? All right. Well, I definitely like ending a little early so that y'all can have a break, go get some refreshments, maybe take a restroom break. So thank you very much for attending my session today, and I hope I get to see you soon. Hey.